Welcome, everybody, to episode 9 of the Family Business Podcast. Today, I have a real treat for you, ladies and gentlemen. Billy Southerland with Ironroad. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Ben.
No problem. What we always do here on the podcast, we first start talking about the company and just the origin story.
Yep.
And, you know, let's go back a little bit, though, in your case, to kind of when you started working with your dad. And as a fellow SOB, sons of business, I love it. Seems like everybody I've had on here is a son of business. So it's an acronym I learned from a gentleman on the podcast.
Yeah, I love it. Take it and run with it, man. There's nothing original.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm not letting it down. But let's just take it back to there and just talk a little bit about that and how working with your dad was.
Yeah, it was really cool. I had I was coming off of being on staff with an organization called Young Life up in Columbus. My dad had a small insurance agency that he had started with my mom in their basement in 1979. He had worked for Allstate for 13 or 14 years, and they said, let's go put our own shingle out and do our own thing. Mm-hmm. And so after 2 years of working with Young Life, my dad said, hey, if you're not going to come into this, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to move on. I'm like, all right, let's go. I had met my wife at that time, and I'm like, I'm going to give it a try. So started doing it. I had no idea I mean, the last guy in the world that I would have even said would have had a desire to get into business, and especially not insurance, which sounds so boring. I'm like, man, no, I just want to be hanging out with people and talking to people and talking about things that matter, which for me was my faith at the time. And but I started it and I loved it, man. I mean, I absolutely loved it. Got out the yellow pages. I was a salesperson. Started calling people out of the yellow pages, setting up appointments, and the thing I loved about it was hearing people's stories. So yeah, thanks to my dad, I got into that, and then we built it up until about 2004 and sold it. And in the meantime, had met some guys that eventually led me to getting into Ironroad.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, like, how was that working with your dad? You know, any lessons you learned from that? Any takeaways?
You know, hindsight. Yeah, I mean, looking back, I learned a ton. I mean, if I could do it differently, I would listen a lot more to my dad.
That's a tough one for everybody.
It's so hard, man. It's so hard. And you're right. I mean, simply because of the relationship. But I would listen more to my dad, and I would have been more respectful to him. I would have treated him with more reverence than I did. I mean, I love my dad. I idolize my dad, but I think I had a tendency to maybe run a little bit too fast, and so those are probably things I would change as I look back. But I learned a ton from him.
Do you mean like challenging kind of what you guys were doing and how you were doing it, or do you mean in a different way?
You know, that's a great question. That's one thing that I would love to give my dad credit for, because he always let me do my own thing. You know, he always let me just kind of. He's like, if I wanted to try something, he'd say go for it. And to his credit, just amazing. You know, just amazing. So I was so proud of him. He never really hindered me in regards to wanting to try different things. He's always throwing money at ideas that I had, which was,
That's great. I mean, a lot of people don't get that kind of open-mindedness from their father in business.
Yeah. So he was amazing when it came to that. Yeah.
So sell the business, then you start Ironroad. Why don't you speak a little bit about kind of the origin of that?
Yeah, it was a total accident, dude. I mean, total accident. While I was selling insurance, I had met two guys that had been very successful in other businesses, Larry Shakley and Todd Riley. Todd and I had gone to high school together. I met Larry through another mutual friend, and Larry was, those guys from a business standpoint have had more success than 99% of the people that you're going to meet. And so they both had done really well in their own business, but I was selling Todd insurance and had gotten into business with Larry to write the insurance for his workers' comp clients.
Okay.
And so Larry and I were somewhat in a partnership at that point. And Todd started talking to me about his workers' comp insurance. Well, in Ohio, you don't really sell workers' comp. I'm like, workers' comp, what's that? I didn't even know what it was.
Yep.
You know, and as a
State funded, right?
right, we're
Program.
state funded, but most insurance agents outside of, and all I was doing was insurance at the time,
Yep.
right? But he tells me he's paying $350,000 for his insurance. I'm like, what? You know, it should have been. To me, it was like $350 billion at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, well, you got to meet my buddy Larry Shakely. Well, I introduced the two of them, and they became fast friends. And they ended up starting Ironroad at that time. And what became Ironroad, we changed the name from HumaCare, because every time people heard HumaCare, they're like, oh, yeah, I know you guys, you're Humanicare. I'm like, nah, we want to get away from just being insurance.
Yep.
But they started the company, and but the two of them ran after it for about a year. And they both, I think both thought the others were going to be the guts, and it just didn't go anywhere. They had one client, trucking client, and so I think Larry looked at Todd and said, I'm done. And Todd came to me and said, hey, you want to buy half of this? I said, what is it? And I hadn't sold the agency yet. This was 1997.
Okay.
And, well, they started in 97, so this was probably closer to 2000. And I said, what is it? And he explained it to me. I'm like, man, I love this concept. This is a really cool concept. We can go take this to our commercial clients, and we could sell the heck out of this thing. I said, how much? He said, $8,800. I said, you got a deal, baby. Let's go. And I was, 30 years old or something at the time, and we started rolling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
$8,800.
$8,800.
Good investment.
Has been a lot of pain, but a great investment.
And so at the beginning, kind of what was it that you were doing to get customer acquisition at the time? What services were you providing?
Yeah, it was really hard because PEOs back then weren't. There wasn't near the regulations.
And what's PEO stand
So
for?
PEO is a professional employer organization.
Yep.
So what we do is we go into small to medium-sized companies, and we become an outsourcer for a myriad of different things, and we also can provide group buying power for things like workers' compensation and insurance products, whether it's major medical, your ancillary products, 401k. And the idea behind it is that you do underwriting well, you go out and buy it in bulk, and you can offer small to medium-sized employers who struggle with all those things.
Yeah.
From a cost standpoint, not only a better way to do it, but a economically more efficient way to do it, and not just year one, but for the life of the contract. Because our ability now, at the size that we're at, is significant in being able to have those costs be able to maintain a certain level. You become statistically credibility.
Yeah.
Have statistical credibility, yeah.
And like, how has that industry evolved? I mean, obviously, a lot of things have changed since 2004. Like, what are some things you've seen over the course?
That's a great question. Ben, it's crazy the amount of change because nobody knew how to do it. I'll tell you the state of Ohio. State of Ohio, when we started, said every time we bring on a new client, they had to become a part of our unemployment SUTA rate. So whatever theirs was, they might have a 0.8, but because we had all these other clients and together we were a 3.5, they'd have to go from 0.8 to 3.5, right? And so that was hard. That was hard, and there were all kinds of people. We had all kinds of issues where we had people come in from KPMG and say, you know what, you guys need to do it this way, and it didn't sound right to me, the way they were suggesting it. I remember going and talking to the deputy director. I said, I'm not going to do that until I go talk to the deputy director of the state of Ohio, the SUTA board. So I went and did it, and basically, frankly, they said, oh, that's fine. You guys go ahead and do that. Because we're not going to do what you're asking us to do. And what I asked them to do was just let us file individually, right? So they wouldn't do it. But then eventually they passed a law that what we did you couldn't do, and then they came back after that money. Shocker, right? Of course, right? Shocker, right? But guess what happened in 2014? You asked what the changes were.
Yep.
Everybody files on their own now. So yeah, shocker, but so all kinds of things like that. So the regulations between how do you marry a co-employment relationship with those kind of things. SUTA, workers' comp, has evolved tremendously, through those years. Total change. Thanks to NAPIO, which is our National Association for Professional Employer Organizations. There's tons of lobbyists that have gone out and, really fought for what the industry does, because you bring a tremendous value to the small to medium-sized employer. Tremendous value. And if you were talking to one of our clients, they'd tell you about that.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of PEOs can really help SMBs, do just scale, because you don't have to worry about them kind of things. A lot of resources here.
That's right. Yeah.
And so you said 2014, everybody could file individually. So is that when it went from like on your W-2, it could actually say the company you work for, not the PEO? Is that when
Well,
that
the
changed?
W-2s didn't change.
Okay.
But just for SUTA, so state unemployment tax.
Okay.
So instead of now filing under Ironroad's FEIN number, now I could go out and I could file under Timmons. What's the name of your company?
Technique Roofing Systems.
Technique Roofing Systems.
They sponsor
right?
the podcast. So.
Technique Roofing Systems. Thank you, guys. But yeah, so now you're on your own. So your basis for what you're charged is like everything else based on how much you use, right?
Yeah.
How much has the state had to pay into unemployment, which is fair. That's the way it should be.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. W-2s have stayed the same. And
Okay. I just remember back, we had our PEO on the W-2 at one point. And not sure if that.
And they're not anymore?
No, they're not. So.
Hmm.
But. So let's get into a little bit about family in the business. So working with your dad, and then.
You want to hear about the fight my brother and I got in?
Yeah, that'd be. That's the kind of juice we're looking for.
Baby,
brother.
let me give you some juice. we were in our old building, and our attorney was there, and he came in the office, and it got heated, man. I mean, and he's a big dude. He's like 6'5", probably 230, and I'm the older brother, right?
So you got the advantage.
I got the advantage, and I'm sitting in a chair looking up at him like this, and all of a sudden he jumps on me. The chair goes, explodes everywhere. Our attorney is sitting on the other side, and he's like, "Guys, I love you both. Please stop." And we're rolling around on the floor, fighting, punching. And 5 minutes later, we were hugging each other. But it's tough, man.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard. Everybody's got, especially when you have strong personalities, right?
Yep.
I mean,
conflicting.
Yeah. So it's hard. It's been a grind in a lot of ways, and our family's very close, right? So we hang out a lot.
Yeah, it can be
You
real
know
tough.
what I'm saying?
Yep.
Then what do? You take it to Thanksgiving. You take it to Christmas.
You get heated at 2-year-old's birthday party.
2-year-old's birthday party. Why is Uncle Billy under the water? Oh, he's been under there a while. Yeah, man. So yeah, it can be real challenging. It's challenging for everybody, man. You've heard stories of families breaking up over it. I could tell you 100 of them probably.
Yep.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's real hard. I mean, just because there's pride involved.
Yep.
There's normal human emotions involved, and some people care about money more than credit, and I mean, there's a whole plethora of things that make it hard.
Yeah, a whole plethora of things.
What are some things kind of made hard for you and your brother, and like any anecdotes to how to get over things like that?
Like during it,
Yeah,
I wasn't at a point where I would have been able to do it, Having been through it, kind of like I was talking about my dad earlier, I wish I would have, if I could talk to myself then, I'd say, listen, don't be so interested in getting your own thoughts out. Don't be so interested in what you have to say. Mm-hmm. Listen more. I always think about scripture that talks about be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. If I could have followed that, we'd have probably ended up in a much better place. Well, we know we would have, right? Anytime we're obedient to what the Word says, it's a win. So, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said pride. So that pride fluffs up and you think you got the right answer, and then you start keeping score. Keeping score is a tough deal, man, no matter what the relationship is, right? Mm-hmm. Start throwing it out with your wife and see how it works out. Let me know.
Yeah, you don't want to look at that scoreboard.
Oh, my gosh.
So, I mean, a lot of good points there. I mean, when you're dealing with family, you go on home, you're seeing them at home, you're seeing them at work. Any sort of advice on, you've been through a couple, obviously, arguments and
fights. Yeah. Blood was spilled.
And I talked to my dad and my uncle, and they've had a lot of heated arguments over the years. And I've sat them both down, and the theme of it is basically, you're not the most important person. And it's kind of hard to be humble like that, though, when you're in a business setting. A lot of the times, so what's the good mixture of looking out for the business, but like also looking out for family, you think, in a company like that?
For me, I think it's, I don't think you can do it any other way other than the way we're told to do it in the Word. That's my belief. So that means you're going to have hard conversations with people that you love, but you speak the truth in love, right?
Yeah.
And you don't talk about things, you talk to things. I know that in both of our scenarios with my brother and I, even talking to my parents, hey, let me tell you what's going on. And I'm sure he did the same thing. And that just exacerbates the situation because it doesn't line up with what's right. And if, for example, if I was out of line, it would be appropriate for him to come to me and give me the opportunity to be humble if in fact I was out of line and say, man, I'm sorry, you're right. Will you forgive me and let's try to make that better. But without the spiritual maturity, during that time, it was a no-win situation. It's not like how am I going to look out for the business or look out for the family? It's like anything else. If you're walking in a way that the spirit inside of you is being fed, right? Then you're not saying yes to that natural self, so self isn't on the throne. And all the things of the spirit become much easier, right? It becomes your reaction as opposed to what comes natural.
Yeah.
And so that if I were looking back, I don't have any other. I mean, you can try to fake it. You can try to go through behavior modifications. What can I learn? But in regards to real power, I don't think there's anywhere outside of that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's sometimes you got to go through a journey too to be there.
Yeah.
So.
Well said. Trust me, I've been to the basement, man. It was dark, and you know how I got down there, Jake? Took the escalator. You know what that means? I never felt it.
Oh yeah.
I never felt it. And it's amazing. I mean, sin is a slippery slope, bro. And you just it's like one little decision that you think it can be sin of omission. I didn't do this, or I didn't get in the Word, I didn't pray. And pretty soon, little by little, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. How did I get down here, and who am I? And so yeah, it's a slippery slope. And I think those are really, you're talking about business, and I can't help but go to the spiritual side, which drives my business decisions. It drives everything I do.
Well, yeah, and there's, all the best principles are biblically based.
Amazing.
What are some biblical principles that are real, that you hold real dear, that you think about a lot when you're operating business?
So for me, the biggest is, and if you talk to anybody in our company, I would hope and I think the first thing they'd say is just servant leadership. The Son of God came here to serve and not be served, and that's the way we look at it. And that isn't just our clients, but that's our vendors, the people that work for us. That's each other. And I think that mentality is an important one. And again, I think you can try to make yourself do that, but if it's not a part of the Spirit, there's no real fruit in it. That's a big one. Another one is seek to understand before being understood. That's a huge one, And I think the whole listening thing is such a big deal because everybody wants to tell you what they think. I saw Francis Chan do a video the other day, and he was talking to a bunch of young people. He said, you know what the problem with your generation is? He said, the problem with your generation is that you put too much importance on what you think and what you feel, and you want everybody to know how you think and how you feel. What are you feeling like? How did somebody else make you feel? When in reality, there's no life to be found there. He said, go to the Word of God. Allow that to be the truth with which you operate from, right? So when we talk about seek to understand before being understood, we could go to a billion stories in the Bible and say boom, 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 boom. You know, same with listening.
Mm-hmm.
Slow to speak, quick to listen, slow to get angry. Like you said, all the principles are there.
Yeah, I mean, they're just littered throughout the Bible. Great business principles. I mean, even like in Genesis, you know, the end of the book of Genesis, Jacob, he's 147, he's dying, and I mean, that's a long time to live. And when he passes blessings along to his sons, he doesn't tell them, you know, all do everything you can. He tells them, he gives them certain blessings. So it's like specialization. You know, like you do this, like he passes that along. I think that's real important in business too, is being specialized. And that book was written how long ago, and it wasn't really founded until I think it was Adam Smith wrote about it, like specialization in economics, way, not too long ago. But that was written in the Bible in the first book.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
Thank you for sharing that. I love hearing that. That's such a great story. And it reminds me of another principle that I was interviewing a younger kid today, and I think trying to find out what do they like? What do you like doing? A lot of times that lines up with their giftedness, and you and I as believers know the giftedness is just that. It's something that was given to you by God. So when you're in the middle of doing it, of course you're going to be passionate about it. It's what you were made to do. It's like a fork being a fork instead of a fork trying to be a spoon, you know? And so from a business standpoint, making sure you understand what people enjoy doing, because and then watch, and then once you watch them do it and you watch them do it together, celebrate it and look up and say, man, God, you're so good. Look at the gifts you gave all these people and look what they're doing. Again, you're taking self off the throne, right?
Yep.
And you're saying, let's recognize God for what he's done. And hey, great job. Guess what? Another principle. Everything you do it as if you're doing it for the Lord and not for men. We're called to be excellent, you know? And so, those are some of the principles that come to mind right away.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them. You can't read the Bible like a novel. You got to digest it really slowly. I mean, it's hard. You just blow over stuff like crazy. It's written very, if you're looking at it from a scholar perspective, there's just so many anecdotes and so many lessons to be had in it. I mean, even if you're someone who doesn't believe out there, it's just somewhere to get value in everyday life.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That people just don't read it. So.
It is. Yeah. The only thing I think of when I hear somebody say it's pretty crazy, they don't read it. It's just a battle, man. We're in a battle. Somebody does not want them to know, and a lot of deception.
Speaking of deception, so I have in my office, I have some really textbook-like books, and I don't really like reading them, but I read them to learn. And it's the History of the World Religion, Volume 1, 2, and 3, right?
Wow.
It's on Jordan Peterson's, I don't know if you know who Jordan Peterson is, but he's a good, real outspoken figure against some Canadian policies on freedom of speech, and then kind of threw him into the spotlight. He has a book called 12 Rules for Life and another one called Beyond Orders, 12 More Rules for Life. Really good stuff for young people, especially that are just kind of trying to figure some stuff out in life. But it's on his reading list. And when you read them, you start to understand kind of human behavior around things. And one of the things I've learned in it is that some Hebrew, right? And in Hebrew, the word fair does not exist. So, and to me, it's because it's too loosely defined. It's not really like, this is what fair is. You don't know what fair is. To you and me, it's different. So when it comes to a family business, it's hard for everything always to be fair, right? So what are you, like, when you start a family business, what are your thoughts around making sure that things are in an agreement? You know, because that's really what it is. Like, it's going to be 50-50, that's what it is. It's going to be 25-25-25, that's what it is. What are your thoughts around kind of like making sure everything's taken care of before you start getting into it?
So it's such a incredible, valuable point that you bring up, because we didn't do that kind of planning, and it created all kinds of issues around what's fair and what's not fair. The way that's changed for my wife and I is sitting down with our kids and saying, hey guys, here's the way it's going to be. And all those things that we missed, so that people, our kids wouldn't say, well, I did A, B, C, D, and E, so I should get X, Y, and Z. Take it out of the equation.
Yeah.
It's not an issue. It's not your decision. It's Mom and I's decision. We can talk about it to them now. Hey, your perspective of what you bring to the table might be a tremendous amount more, but it is, don't get into it if you can't play by these rules, because these are the rules. Period, end of story, right?
And you'll like this too, in the Hebrew language, adolescence is not a word, because that's just somebody that wants what adulthood is, but doesn't have take on the responsibility of it. So that's a good one too, kind of to your point.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, so I think that could save so many people, so many problems, and so I think so many people get into it thinking, oh, we'll never worry, we'd never worry about that. That's not going to be an issue. The truth of the matter is, because we're in a battle, man, that human nature is hard, man. You wake up in the morning hungry, right?
Yep.
You want to eat, and those natural tendencies without, and another scripture comes to mind. God hasn't given us a spirit of timidity, but one of power, love, and self-discipline, right? So if we can discipline ourselves to put those kind of principles in place, like spelling things out, critical.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Yeah, and I think it tends to be overlooked sometimes in family companies because, I don't know, just like you're trying to be cordial, or you don't think that would ever happen.
Yeah,
or stuff
no
like
doubt. 100%. Yeah, but yes, I think you're spot on. Jordan Peterson, you said, right?
Jordan Peterson, yeah.
All right.
He's got some real good stuff. One of his books is called Beyond Order, and he has a rule in there. This is like my favorite rule of his 24 to live by. It's opportunity sits where responsibility has been abdicated.
You're really smart. So you're gonna have to give me a minute. Responsibility sits where
Opportunity lies
where
responsibility has been abdicated.
Man, you're gonna have to break that down for me, bro.
So basically, say there's somebody's dropped the ball and they're not doing, and you're like, I know no one's doing that. If you take it upon yourself to do it, because if it's worth doing, then it's worth taking on the responsibility to do it. If it's not worth doing, then there's no opportunity.
Leave it alone. Yeah.
But if it's worth it, if somebody should be doing that, if somebody took that responsibility and said, I don't want to deal with it, then in that company, in life, in whatever it is, there's opportunity there. Now, what does that opportunity look like? Could be monetary, could be, friendship, could be a bunch of things. But that's definitely my favorite rule, because, growing up in a family business, there's so many things to do. I mean, as you guys know,
Pick up rocks,
right? I mean, there's always something to do. But and you're sitting back.
So cool that you guys are farming.
No, I mean,
1,000 acres. How cool is that?
It's great.
I mean, cool if you're not doing the work.
See, that would be me.
Yeah.
My dad's watching, like, he ain't doing the work.
Yeah, exactly.
I just do the roofing part of things. So, he always says, well, all you got to do is show up to help at farming.
It's so neat. It's so cool.
But, so now your daughter, she works here.
She does. Yeah.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about, how's that been working with your daughter?
It's been better than what I could have ever imagined. And I give her the credit for that, because she's so respectful. She is, and I think a lot of it, like we talked earlier about going and getting that corporate culture, knowing how lines are drawn. And she came in here wanting to make sure people knew she was going to earn her keep, right? And she's very gifted, very talented, humble kid that it's just been really fun to watch, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And she's very, like I said, respectful of me, and just so proud of her. So it's hard to really put into words what that feels like, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so satisfying. You know, I mean, it's just a really kind gift that the Lord's allowing, you know, to take place. So it's been a blast.
Well, that's great. I mean, a lot of relationships that go awry or astray, I guess is the word.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because human nature. So
Mm-hmm.
it's awesome to hear stuff like that.
Oh man, yeah. She's, like I said, she does a great job of making it easy, and she's very, very gifted, very talented, and so it's fun to celebrate her. Yeah.
Is what does the future of Ironroad look like? Is it so one word that's not in, since we're talking about Hebrew, I keep bringing up the Hebrew language.
Let's go, man.
One word not in it is also retirement.
Mm.
That's not in there.
Mm-hmm.
So are you?
Come on, man. Do I look that old?
No. I'm just saying.
When do we pass the torch, right?
Yeah, there's points where they fall apart. It's normally the second gen or the third gen. A lot of times it's right around there. So
Yeah.
what are some things you're thinking about if you're going to do that, or some things
Yeah.
you've seen that might be
I
good
think
to say?
that, again, man, that's a great question. It's a great question, because so many people think, well, I can't wait to retire and go relax and do what I want to do. And I really don't believe life's found there. I think life it kind of ends there.
Mhm.
And so I love what I do. I love why I do it, and I love the people that I do it with. And as long as I can be a part of a productive part of the organization, in whatever form that might be, that's something that I would have a desire to do. I love going out and hearing family business stories. I mean, sitting there with you today and talking and hearing a little bit about yours, what you and your cousins have done over the last few years. I mean, and then your dad and his
Mhm.
brother. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, I love it. It's my favorite part of my job. I'll walk in, I'm like, tell me your story, man. And you learn so much about so many different businesses. So answering your question, I love doing that. I don't even think about retiring, but I also know that, I mean, literally, I'm a terrible business person. I mean, the way most people would describe business
Yep.
person, they'd be like, oh my gosh, keep him, finances, financials, all that stuff. I'm like, listen, I believe in our product. I love our product. I love communicating our product to our clients and our potential clients. So let me stay in that lane, and then I love watching other people do things that they're great at. So as long as I can continue to do that and be helpful, I'm going to do that and influence, that methodology around how this place operates. And hopefully and prayerfully, the people that run it when I'm gone will have soaked in by the grace of God, and they'll be, practicing those things for somebody else. I do find myself as I'm getting older, taking more time to intentionally articulate principles that I believe in, hoping and praying that they're heard and caught, and that something's done with them.
Yeah,
down
that
the
makes a
road.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
You got to be intentional with it.
Yeah, we do a servant leadership class here on Thursdays at 11, and it's just been such a. I mean, it's really a Bible study. We open up the Word, we get into it, we talk with people, just talk about their lives, and it's amazing what it does for our company. And we have people, people join via Zoom from all over the country, and that's something I would love to be a part of until I die. Whether I'm the person leading it or not, just those kind of things have been really rich. It's become, this has become just really a ministry.
Yeah. Just part of the culture now here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't intentionally we don't hire all Christians. We have people
Yeah.
here that don't believe. We have people here of different faiths. My son I told you about that we lost was Muslim. And man, you want to talk about a powerful story. The last 6 weeks of his life, the mosque in Westchester over here found out, and he had gone there because my sweet dad would drive him to the mosque every time he wanted to go on Fridays. And I get a call, and they said, hey, would you mind if we come over and, spend some time with Yusuf? Because he spent the last 8 months in our home dying of cancer. And, my sweet wife took care of him, 24/7. But these guys started showing up about 6 weeks before he passed, right? And they show up the first night, and it was kind of cool because I let them in, and it was real easy to remember all their names. How you doing? I'm Muhammad. I'm Muhammad. Hey, what's up, Muhammad? I say, the Muhammads are here. Let's go, boys. And they became dear friends of ours, right? But they would come every night, and I remember them asking me, they're like, why are you doing that? What's up? Why are you doing this? And communicating to them, our thought process behind why, and it's like, of course we would. So it was really an impactful experience, so much so that they invited me to speak at the mosque at his funeral. The imam just said, Billy, I don't want you talking about, Jesus being the Son of God, because I don't believe that. I said, of course I won't. And the imam came over and spoke at the service of celebration of life that we had at our house. They insisted on paying for his burial and all those things. Just an incredible, tremendous story. My wife and I and the kids went to one of the Muhammad's house. Actually, his name's Nadeem. He's not Muhammad. But they would laugh at me calling them all Muhammads. 2 weeks ago. And they've become dear friends of ours. And so, intentionally, getting back to my point here, we don't just want to hire all Christians.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We love to learn. You're reading the history of the world's religions. What a blessing to be able to do that and to not force anything on anybody, but just to love people where they are. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, everybody's got to go through their own journey. That's for sure.
We don't pick. We get picked, right?
So, we'll wrap her up here, Billy. But
wrap it up.
Let's get in. Give me some of your best business advice for you. Obviously you're doing sales, right? So,
Sales to me.
And a lot of people, I feel like it's coming around, but it used to be that people of faith would think money was bad, and it's not. It's good. It's good, for the people of God to get money. And,
yeah.
And it's. You look at like the Jewish religion, and they're disproportionately studied on when it comes to keeping records and all sorts of things, and fluent. So what are some good sales? You got any good sales tips or any sort of good business tips as we wrap this up for the audience?
Here's the sales tips. The sales tips are, when you go, don't try to sell anything. If you're selling, don't try to sell anything. Be transparent. Be honest. Don't try to sell something that you're not passionate about. Just don't do it. Yeah. And then go to listen. Go there and try to find out why that person agreed to sit with you, and learn about them. You can't fake being genuine. And if that's genuinely what you enjoy, they're going to see and feel that, and the relationship that you begin with that person is going to be one that will be significant. And then don't base your conversation or your responses on whether or not you get the business. So many people don't get it, and they put all this work in and they get upset. Our philosophy here is that if we don't get your business, here's our goal. We want to leave you. I think I said this to you earlier.
Yes, sir, you did.
What'd I say?
You said we want to leave you better off than when we found you.
There you go. So we just one little deposit, right? Maybe it's something educating you around benefits that will help you, that will help your employees, So I think that mentality lines up with Scripture, and I think as a result of that, we know it's going to produce fruit relationally, and then, from a business standpoint. And, some of my best friends are my clients. I had a client just leave me because he felt like he outgrew our business. They got up to be about 400 people. He's a good friend of mine. He said, Billy, it broke my heart to do this. He told me this last Friday. And I said to him, I'm like, hey, Steve, I understand. And if this isn't good for you, I don't want it. And it was a big loss for us, right? They had 400 people.
Yeah.
And so you feel that, and yet I could look at him in the eyes and say, if it's better for you, I'm happy for you. I disagreed with him, but I understood, and I celebrated it with him. So I think that's critical in sales and in building any business. If you can take the selfish side out of it, compete. Be passionate about what you're doing. You know, be passionate about, I don't care what it is. You could be doing commercial roofing, you can be doing PEO, you could be doing fill in the blank, doesn't matter, engineering. Be passionate about it or don't do it. My daughter, Caroline, beautiful, amazing kid. You should have her on your podcast just to sing. Let me play something for you? I'll play it for you. I mean, the girl. You want to have people watch your podcast? You ought to listen to her.
It would definitely help here.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to play it before we finish. But she just graduated from college with a teaching degree. She goes, Daddy, I don't think I want to teach. I said, well, don't teach. What do you want to do? She loves music. She loves fashion. She's working at a little boutique. She got a dream to be able to do her own line. I'm like, let's go. We sat in this room the other day and laid up here a business plan, beginning a business plan for how she might be able to launch it, stuff she's got to do and look at. So
that has to be fun to plan stuff like that with your daughter.
Oh my gosh,
that's got to be great.
Oh my god. Oh, did I let you listen to this? No, it was that was somebody else. That was the kid I was interviewing. I interviewed this kid because he's got a music background, and I said, you got to listen to something for me. And he said, okay, I'll listen to it. So
now, is she like more like you or more like your wife?
She's more like my wife. When you hear this voice, what you're going to say is, where's she sing? Where's she performing? She's a beautiful girl. And guess what? She sings for me and my wife. She doesn't think she's any good. She won't sing for anybody else. What's that thing called? TikTok.
TikTok,
Yeah.
yes, sir.
Chilly Willy TikToks.
Oh, you got a TikTok? This? We're on TikTok as well, the Family Business Podcast. Just that home she's singing. Jake's getting into it.
Jake, come on. Would like a day, yonder look You're going to cut this, aren't you? You said maybe. Don't cut that.
No.
I got a better one for you. Hold on. This is my last one. Help what you want.
Did she sing in high school or no?
You look like a movie. Jake, let me get this guy out of here. Hey Jake, I ain't gonna leave. Listen to this, soul. I'm done. Passion, follow your passion. Don't teach.
That's what it's about. You got one time to live here. You know, you got to do what you're called to do. Well, thank you, sir, for being on the Family Business Podcast. We really appreciate you.
Hey, thank you guys. I'm proud of you, man. This is awesome. Give people a chance to tell their story, and you're so well read, and you ask amazing questions. So thanks for making me think.
Well, thank you. I like to make people think.
Yeah, let's think. You ever had anybody rap on your podcast?
I have not
okay.
yet.
All right. Guess he's not going to ask me to rap.
No. Please proceed.
Okay, I need something. Tell me something to rap about.
How about let's rap about Jake driving home.
My name's Jake, and she's 2 days old. I don't know what to do. I got kind of bold. I left the house, and my wife got mad. And when I get home, baby gonna get it bad. What should I do? I may turn around. I'm gonna go with my boy so I don't have to frown. I'll be in trouble going home when she's 2 days old. I'm not gonna sleep. Baby gonna be with the mold in the garden in the peace. I'm done.
For the record, Jake did not leave his 2-day-old baby.
Jake, man, you can't be doing that stuff. Thank you, guys. That was awesome.